right, fantastic. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. Happy New Year. Can't believe it's 2021. Probably a good thing, I'm thinking, given how 2020 went. So hope everyone had a great holiday and are looking forward to a great new year. So I'm going to go officially call the meeting to order. At this point, does anybody need to self-identify? And if so, I'll give you a moment to do that. All right, I take silence as a no. So the first action item we need is the approval of the November 10th meeting minutes. And those, I believe, are in the packet that was sent out. So can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
This is Dave Schroeder. I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Dave.
Can I get a second? McKay. This is Dean McKay. I'll second.
Thank you, Dean. Any discussion or questions on the minutes, corrections before we vote? All right, all those in favor of approving the minutes from the November 10th meeting, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, thank you for that. Next item, this is actually my favorite part of these meetings, to be honest. It's our mission moment. And I'm going to, is Ellen on?
Good morning,
Yes.
I'm here.
Morning, Ellen. I'm gonna hand it over to you for our mission moment this morning.
Awesome, thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ellen Bates. I'm the Workforce Innovation Director with Brighton Center at the Career Center. We are, of course, the subcontractor of the WIOA funding. So thank you all for leading our work. And as Dana said, this is one of my favorite things to do as well. The mission moments, when we take a minute to really recognize one of our customers and the hard work that they have done. So David, if you don't mind going to the next slide. Awesome, thank you so much. So everybody meet Albert Decker. Albert is one of our, what we call kind of our basic career services customers, meaning that, you know, he is really at that basic level of service that we provide. And so he is a great success story. He came to us in the middle of the pandemic. So he worked for over 20 years with his family's cabinetry business in Eastern Kentucky. And then in the midst of the pandemic, had to move to the Northern Kentucky area and to leave his family and come here. And so he reached out to the Career Center in June of 2020. So right in the middle of all of this, and was able to receive some of those really critical services that we were able to provide virtually. And so he connected with a career coach. We worked on his resume. We really identified some transferable skills for him, which was really important because as I said, he had a lot of experience with his family's business and kind of felt like that was holding him back from transitioning into a new industry because he didn't know how to transition those skills from his family business into a new industry. And so we really coached him through, you know, recognizing all of the immense talents that he had from working with his family business, those problem solving, customer service, those transferable skills that helped him prepare for the interview, really identifying that he had a lot to bring to companies in Northern Kentucky. So the career coach really worked with him on those items, really coached him through that. And simultaneously, a business service representative was really looking at those skills and looking at the employers that we have in the area and identifying key employers that were really in need of Albert's skills and talents. And so, you know, in July of 2020, on recommendation from the Career Center, Albert applied with Halpern Steak and Seafood, which is a food supplier in Walton, Kentucky. And he interviewed and landed a position with them in July. And so the great thing about this story that I really love is it's really a dual job seeker and employer success story. Halpern's was actually connected to the Career Center through Northern Kentucky Triad. So thank you so much for that referral for their hiring needs, which is, really a testament to the collaboration of all the workforce partners in the area. And so, they were thrilled with Albert's placement. So I love that it's a success story that really works well for both our job seekers and an employer. We're continuing, to develop that relationship with Halperns, and they've reported that they've already promoted Albert, that he's just a great fit for their company. And so have a little quote from Albert at the end here. He says, "I really enjoy Halperns. They are professional and care for their employees." He says, "I'm lucky to be here and glad that I reached out to the Kentucky Career Center when I moved to Crittenden." So, really, again, just loving to highlight the fact that this is what it's all about. This is bridging that connection between our job seekers, our employers, the best of both worlds in this situation. And so Albert's already been promoted. He's already received a raise within the 6 months that he's been with this company. And looking forward to see more great things come from Albert. So thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. As I said at the beginning, this is my favorite part. And I say this after each mission moment, but this is really what it's all about. This is what we're here and why we do what we do. So thank you for that. Keep those stories coming. Love it. Okay, let's move on to the committee status reports, and we'll start with Program and Youth. Jamie?
Thanks, Dana. The Program and Youth Committee had a pretty straightforward meeting last month, except for one agenda item that I'll get to here in a couple minutes. But we had a update from David on the metrics that we see every month. And then we also talked a little bit about our partnership with Ellen and Corey, giving an update from their perspective with the Brighton Center and everything. Of course, Liberty gave a nice update in regards to our finances and accountability, but then we moved into the action item that the committee took and was approved and moved on to the full board today to take action upon. And that's in regards to some policy changes that you'll actually see on page 10 of your packet. And so to really help better align ourselves with the employers that we support and the funding that we get, so we can ensure that we fully expend that funding that we get, we wanted to update the current policy language. And so you'll see there that the current policy language says internships or work experience can last up to 6 months, up to 25 hours per week at $13.25 per hour, not to exceed 650 hours. The language that's being proposed, again, to better align us with our employers and also our funding sources so that we can make sure that we fully utilize those services, is internships and work experience can last up to 6 months, up to 40 hours per week, with the pay rate matching the rate of other employees in similar positions up to $16 per hour, not to exceed 1,040 hours. So again, those changes were approved by the Program and Youth Committee and presented today to the full board for approval. Tony, is there anything that you'd like to add to that I may have missed, or Tara?
No, you summarized it perfectly.
So Jamie, just really quickly, and if you said this at the beginning, I apologize, I missed it. So can you just remind us why we're making this change?
Yeah, so we're making this change to better align with our employers' requests and needs, so that they're so the interns, the externs are better matched to their current employees, and to also align with our funding sources to ensure that we accurately expend those funding sources and don't leave monies on the table unnecessarily. So sorry if that wasn't clear. Perfect,
thank you. Okay, are there any questions for Jamie? And this is an action item, so Program and Youth does need a motion to approve the proposed new policy language. So can we get a motion?
This is Brent. I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Brent. Can I get a second?
second. This is Carissa.
Thank you, Carissa. Any questions before we take a vote? All right, all those in, sorry. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, fantastic. So that motion carries. Thank you. And Jamie, did you have other items for today?
No, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And sorry, I'm toggling back up to the agenda. I think business services is up. Is that right?
That's right. This is Dave. Good morning, everybody. So we held our last business service meeting on December 9th. Pretty well attended, general agenda as normal. We did have a certain number of guests for one of the agenda items, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, but pretty well attended by everybody. Before I get started, I did want to just go ahead and we acknowledged an achievement in the business service meeting with one of the members, but I want to bring it forward again for the full WIB. I want to acknowledge Owen County Public Schools. They received an award in 2020, late 2020, as the Owen County Outstanding Business of 2020. Of course, they're the Owen County's largest employer. And there were some really nice things that were written by the committee about what they did. The key point was they provided service during the pandemic. And it was one of the only institutions that kept the community together. And they never wavered in their mission or vision during that whole period. So that was a really well done by the public schools. Dr. Stafford and his staff can really take pride in that recognition. So a good thumbs up to Owen County, and we're glad that they're part of the WIB and part of Dr. Stafford's attendance. What we have going on in today's meeting, we had an action point. We're asking again for certification of some access points. And just as a reminder, the certification is a process that occurs as part of the WIOA requirements and state requirements. And if you recall, the Career Center locations are categorized in three types. Comprehensive Center, which is similar to what we have in the Covington area in the Career Center. An affiliate site, which has at least one partner in addition to some staff on site. And then an access point, which the access points have materials on site with only one partner organization on site most of the time. And then WIOA members are visiting on a less frequent basis. So if you recall, at the last meeting, we certified 2 access points closer to Northern Kentucky. I'm glad to bring forward 3 more today. The Carrollton location, the Owen County Public Library, and the Pendleton County Library. The reviews and audits of the areas start on page 12 of your meeting packet. You can look through it. There were some comments and some findings and some acknowledgement of completed requests. So at this point, I'd like to bring forward the motion to approve those 3 locations. Can I get a
Michelle Sesterick, so moved.
Okay.
Janet Harris, seconded.
Okay, great. Any questions, comments? Not, all in favor, vote aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great, thanks. Congratulations on those 3 new locations, and that's 5 that we've added since the middle part of 2020. It's going to make a big deal for a lot of our customers, so really super appreciative of the support from the career staff, Tara, your staff, and everybody in making this happen.
Dave, sorry, before you move on, just for the minutes, do we need any abstentions for that last vote, Tara? Based on the board makeup?
No, we
Okay.
shouldn't.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay, sorry, Dave, go ahead.
Oh, no problem, no problem. The second part of the meeting that occurred on the 9th, we talked again about the industry certification and discussions that have been going on since about mid last year. At this meeting, we wanted to bring together some key individuals from business and educators to understand what was actually happening inside that credential and certification discussion, and get the viewpoints from all the groups represented. We had great representation from the educators, several superintendents, folks from high schools. We had college representation as part of the meeting. There was some great work done by Dr. O'Hara beforehand to provide documentation. Karen Chesser provided good documentation also at the same time. We also were fortunate enough to have KDE representative, Mr. Kelly Whitaker, who is basically the administrator of the program, a policy guy, but certainly one of the key individuals that bring together the program for the state and recommendations toward the school. And during the meeting, we talked a lot about what recommended credentials were needed, cost of exams. The businesses had some key points on credentials that were required inside their industry itself rather than a general purpose type of credential. And then there was a lot of discussion in ensuring that the customer, primarily the students, understood the purpose of the requirement. So it was a really good, robust conversation. A lot of things came out during that dialogue that we'll get into in an additional meeting. But what I thought was pretty interesting is outside of the meeting afterwards, Tara had a meeting with Mr. Whitaker, and they indicated that they would be a lot more agile than what they had done in the past and show a lot of flexibility to meet our needs. So I thought that was a real key point. And Tara, thanks for following up with Kelly on that. I think it was really important. As a next step, we will probably convene a ad hoc group. So we were going to put out a schedule for that ad hoc group and ask for membership probably in the next week or so. You'll see a memo come out of BSC about that. So I'd like anybody that's interested to consider joining that ad hoc group. The period I think that group will be meeting will be between February and April, a couple of meetings. We'll also need to define the timeline that the WIB and the KDE will use for the series of events leading up to a decision point. I think that's in late April. Is that right, Tara? I think.
Yeah. Yes. Well, maybe even a little before that. They want to send out a survey, and they have said that they will be giving us additional data. Thank goodness we have David Klockner, because we still haven't received the state data, and I'm not sure when the survey is going to be available. But they have actually mentioned even as soon as late March.
Yeah. Okay. One of the other things that this ad hoc group will be doing will be developing short-term and long-term needs to support the BSC group, the businesses, and the educational partners. One thing, I don't want to have to reinvent the wheel every year that this comes up. So there will always be long-term needs that the WIB and the membership and the business community need. And there'll be some short-term things that come up quickly. So we want to make sure that those are clearly identified, documented. And then one of the things that the group will also need to start to prepare is documenting the process so that we can make improvements as we go year to year. Part of that process is going to be this, the steps A to B to C to D, et cetera, and so forth, but also making sure that we ID the important stakeholders from both the educators and the business community, and make sure that we have good partnerships inside that circle, so that we're not recreating the wheel come December the year before. So as I mentioned, there'll be an invite coming out in the near future. There'll be a survey. Hopefully we'll have a series of meetings and be able to bring to the web some recommendations in the early spring to meet the schedules that are required. So a lot of words from me. Any comments, any questions? Anybody want to jump in that was part of the meeting? Okay, well, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate that report. Then let's move on to the MBO, and John, you have the floor.
Thank you, Dana. Not to be outdone, we also have lots of pages in our pack out, our membership packet. So we've talked a little bit about in the past about some updates and changes we're trying to make to clarify the board operations better. So today there is no action required. This is the first reading of these changes of the bylaws. So I'd like to direct your attention to 2 pages within the handout. It's page 4 of the bylaws, which is page 28 of the packet. You'll see the red line changes that were made specifically in there. I'll just translate that into why we made those changes and what the purpose of those changes is. So on this page, we're simply trying to clarify term lengths for board members and the reappointment limits and process within that. So there was very confusing language in this previously, and we just want to make this very clear that this is a 2-year term, and those 2-year terms begin when you are appointed to the board, not at the fiscal year start of the board itself. The other clarifying point here, which is the second paragraph of Part D, is specific to board members that must be reappointed because they are working for a different organization. Board members are tied not just to their names, but also to their organization. So if one of you were to experience a job change and wanted to continue on the WIB, you would need to be renominated in your new role for that. And we've made the decision that during that renomination process, essentially your term begins anew. With here the caveat that also if you are reappointed, whether you change jobs or not, there is a lifetime maximum of how long you can serve on the WIB. The goal here is to ensure that we have continuous turnover and new perspectives on the board, but also realize that there is value in having some experience in the board as well. So we felt this was a good balance on top of that. There is also one exception to that where there are required board members here based on their role, and there is no lifetime maximum for that. So that's section D on page 4 of the bylaws. On the next page, page 29 in the packet, page 5 of the bylaws, this is meant to provide clarity on the nomination process and the prerequisites to serve as the chairperson. So we are in our January meeting right now, so you will hear from me in a second about the call for nominations. This is sort of described later in the packet, but it's kind of a black box. So here, hopefully we're making this a bit clear, which is simply that the MBO committee is the one in charge of gathering these nominations and then presenting them to the executive committee for a review and a creation of a slate. And those officers are then presented to the full board for consideration in the May meeting. Again, there was a duplicate in terms of 2-year, 1-year, 3-year. It's a 2-year term, black and white. And then finally, we removed the prerequisite that one must be an officer prior to becoming a chairperson. We did maintain the prerequisite that you should have led a committee, But the officer step would have added another hurdle in terms of becoming a chairperson and would have made a minimum of, I'm doing this math right, you would have been a minimum for almost 6 years before you're a chairperson. So you'd become chair right when your term is expiring, theoretically. We did keep the committee chair prerequisite because we believe that by leading a committee, you really understand the work required within the WIB. You are also then a member of the executive committee. So that gives you an insight into what that committee does and the purpose of that and how it supports the chair in his or her role. The other clarity here is there are a few officer positions that are unrelated to the committee chairs. So that is the secretary and the treasurer. So again, when we talk about our call for nominations, if you are interested in serving in one of those capacities, please let me or someone else in the NVO committee know that that is something you're interested in doing. I also strongly encourage you to nominate others. Quite a few here are servant leaders and may be hesitant to nominate themselves because they believe there's someone else better qualified for that. So if you believe there is someone better qualified for that, I would like you to nominate them directly to us so we know who our outstanding candidates are. That is the long-winded update on the changes there. So it's the full bylaws, but really it's just 2 pages that we've changed. If I'm not mistaken, Tara, we do another reading of this before we call for an action, or is our action next meeting?
So the extra step that you're thinking of is that the staff will actually be mailing out these changes by using the postal service. So you've all received it via email, you'll receive it in the mail, and then there can be a vote at the next full WIB meeting. Just a side administrative note, I know that with COVID, not everyone is spending as much time in your official office. So if you are someone who meets that category and you would like your packet mailed somewhere else than where you normally would receive it, if you could please send me a quick note via email and let me know that, and we will make sure to direct your packet to the correct location.
Thank you, Tara. The next item on my agenda here is our member spotlight. So today we have the privilege of hearing from Vicki Burling, who many of us have known for quite a while, but somehow she has not yet been presented here. So I'll hand the floor over to Vicki.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I did prepare a little slideshow. So Dave, you can go on to the first thing. So you know, I am a Northern Kentucky native and proud to be so. Unlike my colleague who nominated me, Dave Schroeder, I am not Ludlow royalty, but I did grow up in Ludlow. I have one of those blended families that you don't know how many people to count, but I count 5. So obviously in the picture, a younger stepsister is missing. I think the takeaway for you is that I'm a middle child. If you know any middle children, you know we're sort of an annoying group of people. I like to think we just try a little bit harder, and really it's all about just hoping that somebody remembers our name. So David, you could go to the next slide. I did graduate from Ludlow High School, and then I went to Western Kentucky University, actually at a time when virtually no one from Northern Kentucky went to Western Kentucky University. And in fact, Big Red and I, you see the mascot down there, Big Red and I actually arrived on the campus of Western Kentucky University the same year, which I'll just go ahead and say it, even though it dates me. It was the fall of 1979. I ultimately graduated with a degree in public relations, and then I moved to St. Simons Island, Georgia, which is a pretty smart thing to do when you're 22. And I work for an organization called the Coastal Area Planning and Development Commission. I was their public affairs director. Here's a fun fact. Katie Jo Kirkpatrick also worked at that very same organization early in her career. She's much younger than I am, so she was there after but we both have stories to tell about Vernon Martin, and all of those stories are true. They are. I wasn't at the Planning Commission for very long, and then I moved to another organization. And Dave, you can go to the next page. So I worked in psychiatric healthcare. So on the island of St. Simons, there was a center there that was essentially like a Betty Ford center. So we did primarily alcohol and drug rehab, but also some psychiatric care as well. And I became their marketing director. It was a great opportunity, and ultimately I did well. It was always sort of a little bit of an oxymoron, because if you did well, this was a hospital corporation. If you did well, ultimately you had to move to the corporate office, which was in Macon, Georgia. And you go from St. Simons to Macon, you're not sure that's a promotion, but it was. And the great thing about that position is that I got to travel extensively. So I had one of those jobs where I got on the plane on Monday afternoon and I came back home Thursday night. And I got to see most of the United States of America. There's a couple of states in the middle, like those North and South Dakota, that I haven't been to. Not sure I really want to go, to be honest, but other than that, I've been in most of those, most states in the United States of America. I did meet my husband in Macon, Georgia, and got married and started a family there. Ultimately, we left Macon with his position and went to Philadelphia, where we lived for a couple of years. If you'll switch to the next slide. And so baby number 3 came along, and like all good Northern Kentucky women, I said, I want to come home because that's where my mother is. And so we moved back to Northern Kentucky in the mid-90s. And at that time, I actually was home with my children. I spent 5 years home with my children. And when it was time for me to get back into the workforce, I felt like I needed an MBA to kind of get back to my cushy corporate career track. And so I took a job at Thomas More College, because if I worked for them, I could do an MBA for free. And my intention was to get that free MBA and get back into the corporate world. But the first student I met with, I fell in love with higher ed, and I made that my career and really enjoyed it. So over a 20-year period of time, I worked with non-traditional education, so adult programs, the TAP program at Thomas More, and then the PACE program at NKU, online learning, non-traditional. I was at Thomas More ultimately for 7 years, and then I went to Northern for 11. I had the privilege of working directly with Corey Eimer while I was at NKU, and that was certainly a highlight for me. And then I went to Sullivan University for 3 years. And then at the end of that, somewhere along the line, I got a PhD in higher education administration from Indiana State University. And then I left there and took my current position, which you can flip over. So my current position is with the Building Industry Association of Northern Kentucky, where I run something called the Ensweiler Building Institute. It is still post-secondary education, but obviously it is in the skilled construction trade. So it's an apprenticeship approach. We train electricians, plumbers, carpentry, those kinds of things. And it's a great pleasure. It's interesting because all of my time, most of my time in higher ed, you might know that 65% of the people who are in higher ed are female. Now I work with 99% young men, which is, it's been a great pleasure and a great joy. So you can go to the next slide. So personally, I have 3 grown daughters. That picture was in December. Those are the loves of my life, my 3 grown daughters. The one that's obviously a bride got married in December in Atlanta. I have 3 grandchildren, which you can see there. And there is one missing love, which would be my husband. So although I am personally not Ludlow royalty, on the second go round, so not the farmer in the picture before, but the new and improved husband is in fact Ludlow royalty, because as Dave knows, you're either NFL or AFL, and that means you're either not from Ludlow or you're always from Ludlow. So I am AFL, so always from Ludlow. When I'm not working, I'm probably in jazzercise. Actually, it's remote right now, which isn't the best way to do jazzercise, to be honest. I do love cooking, and I love riding around in a golf cart. I do technically golf, but mostly I'm better at riding around in the golf cart. So that's 5 minutes of me. And let's see, I got a message here. So I think I'm supposed to connect. I'm supposed to pick the next person, and I'm going to keep us in the skilled trades and ask Brian Bozeman to step up next time.
Awesome. Thanks, Vicki, so much. I feel like I've learned more about Ludlow than people on the board. So hopefully Brian's not from Ludlow. We'll learn something else about some other part of our region.
Well, you should take a ride down there. It's pretty cool, actually.
I might have been to Burkus once or twice in my life, so I heart Ludlow as well. With that, that's the end of the MBO committee report. But before I hand it over, I did want to say one more time, please consider being an officer or presenting someone for that. We would love to see a great group of candidates come forward for our main meeting. Thanks very much.
All right, thanks, John. And Vicki, thank you for that. That's great. Got to know a little bit more about you that I didn't know. I knew a lot of that, but some of that I did not know. So thank you for that. Look forward to the next one. So I guess now we're gonna move on to the executive committee report.
Dana, before you go on, Alicia, did you have a question?
I did. Thank you, John. Dana, just a quick question. I just wanted to ask, would any of the changes in our bylaws affect any of the current members? And if so, is there a way for us to grandfather those folks in, or if it were to affect any of them?
So the answer is we will do this as a moving forward change and not a retroactive change.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Alicia, for the question. Sorry, I didn't catch that you were trying to ask a question. My apologies.
No worries at all, Dana.
All right, any other questions before we move on to the executive committee report? Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about strategic planning. And I know we have a deck, and Tara, I think you were going to go through that deck. I'm just going to basically hit the highlights, and that is, you all probably have seen or should have seen that we're starting our strategic planning, our local plan process. I believe the survey went out. Dave, keep me honest, should have gone out to all of the board members. And I know we've gotten some really great feedback, specifically in terms of the mission, vision, and values, which will be, Tara will be talking about here in just a moment. And I know we've talked about this in a couple of other, we've kind of queued this up, if you will, at the end of last year. You know, this is an important process, and I know we've had some folks that raised their hands that wanted to partner with the executive committee on the update development of the whole plan. So thank you for that. And so we're basically kicking that off as we said we would at the end of last year. Again, I know we're going to go through, there's a deck that we're going to go through. I just wanted to just really briefly, it's in the packet and I'm skipping around a little bit, but I wanted to kind of go through the timeline of what we're looking at. And it's on page 40. Sorry, I'm just trying to scroll down. 42 of your packet.
Hold on, let me see what
So, I'm sorry, I'm trying to move my phone around here. So essentially what's happening is, you see the list of meetings, and I know, so last Friday, Tara and Katie Jo and I met a little bit to look at some of the feedback that we got with regard to the mission, vision, and value statements. And we're going to kind of start talking a little bit more about that today. And as you can see, there's planned a time within each committee meeting to talk specifically about
I'm not gonna sit in on the whole thing. I'm just gonna pop in for like 5 minutes.
specifically about the plan. Sorry, if you can go on mute if you're not speaking, that would be great. And then, so we're trying to be conscious of time. And so again, what we're wanting to do is make sure that you carve out time within your committee meetings to talk about your pieces of the strategic plan. We looked at that a little bit at the last meeting, and how it's broken down in chapters, and how we've kind of thought each of those chapters best fit within the committees. Again, we're going to go through that a little bit today in this deck. But there will also be, just because of the amount of work that really needs to happen, there are going to be some additional meetings planned, and you can see on the agenda or the schedule that where it says planning committee, those are just some additional meetings. You know, we're hoping to have this pretty well complete, hopefully in March. Keep me honest here, Tara, so that we can take it to a vote in May or June. I don't remember which time. In May, yeah. And kind of one of the last pieces is we need to have the Leo, the elected officials review and sign off as well. So it's a pretty aggressive timeline, so lots of work. You know, I'm just going to ask within your committees in particular, if you could just make sure that you're giving the appropriate time and attention to this as you meet. And we will certainly be doing the same. The planning committees, as I said, those meetings are specific and dedicated to this activity. So again, it's aggressive, but we think we can do it. We appreciate people that raise their hand to help be part of that. So Tara, anything else about the timeline?
No, I would just say, I just like to say thank you to Dana for really providing the leadership on this. I've been in contact with our colleagues in Frankfurt about their guidance, because this is a requirement for us to do a local plan in WIOA. And they were saying, oh yeah, in about a month or so, we'll probably get you some guidance. And I'm thinking, if we waited another month before we even began, there is no way that we could really have, I think, the really strong product that you are all expecting. And so just really appreciate Dana really spearheading this and pushing it ahead, because I think it's going to create such a better final product than otherwise would have been the case. So I just want to say thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. And thank you for you and your staff for, this is a lot of work. I know you've already done a lot of work with it, and it's going to continue, you know, at least through May. So Tara, thank you and your staff for the work that they've already done with this.
Dana, do you want us to go through the timeline when now, or do you want to wait and we can do it at the end? It's up to you.
Well, I've already kind of talked through, the timeline with the meetings. I mean, the takeaway is we're starting now. This activity will be doing pretty hot and heavy through May. Just, you know, be ready. You'll be seeing potentially some things coming through on email. You'll be talking about it in your committee meetings. So that's the high level kind of takeaway messaging on the timeline.
Perfect. Well, we'll just do the facilitated conversation then at the end. If that sounds good.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And so what Tara's talking about is we did get some, based on the survey, we did get some feedback about the mission, vision, and values of the WIB. And so we're going to do we're going to take a look at that at the end of the meeting and kind of go through some of the feedback that we got and start talking about that and potential changes that we want to make.
Okay. So do you want to go ahead and do my director's report then?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Okay, so further down in your packet, and I know this was quite a lengthy packet, very thorough from every committee, so thanks. I also took an opportunity to send you lots of pages this month. We were just very, I guess, thorough in this particular meeting, but I'm not going to read it all, oh my goodness. But I decided to take, based on some feedback, a new format for my director's report. So normally I just highlight the things that are ongoing, you know, whatever is right now, right? So just like the current things for you all to be aware of. But I got some additional feedback, and I have been for a while now, about board members just really wanting to dig in and better understand sort of everything that the WIB is. And the nature of our meetings, what being every other month, means that something might come up and then you might not hear about it, even maybe for half a year or so, and then it's time for that thing to come up again. And so this new format is my effort to try to share with you all a little bit about everything that we do. And my intention is that I'll use this format again, you know, maybe for the next several months, and then ask for additional feedback about if it's working for you. So this time it goes through, again, I've kind of grouped by large category area. So Career Center operations. As a reminder, that's you'll hear from Corey Eimer here in just a moment. We have a subcontractor who is our operator, but there are some things that the WIB staff overseas related to that work as well. Things like leases, things like participating in certifications that you just voted on today. And thank you again for that. I think it's going to be really exciting to have those additional access points, and providing technical assistance to our subcontractor. The same goes for our direct services through WIOA, and you'll hear from Ellen in just a moment, and she's going to talk about that. And again, we do have our subcontractor, but there are some things that the WIB staff again oversees, such as reporting, monitoring, and technical assistance as well. And so this report that I created, some of the highlights at this point are really just descriptions of what these items are, almost like definitions. I wanted to make sure that there was an opportunity for everyone to really understand kind of the breadth of what we're looking at on a regular basis, even if you maybe don't always receive the update. And then, of course, we have a lot of responsibilities to our stakeholders, to you as a board, as well as to our local elected officials, and our subcontractor, Brighton Center, again, with regard to technical assistance and monitoring. And then, of course, to all of our community partners, some of whom are on the call today. We want to make sure we are a strong participant in Grow Northern Kentucky. We want to make sure we work with our local chamber as well as our state chamber. We want to make sure we're working with all of our education and training providers, and the list goes on and on. And so I'm sorry if I left somebody out, but this report is my attempt to kind of show, and then of course our state officials, right? We have a lot of things that we need to do to make sure that we're coordinating with our friends in Frankfurt. And so rather than go through each of them, I'm going to just let you guys kind of take it on your own. If you have any questions, please let me know. I hope you like this format. I hope it allows you to kind of see the breadth of everything that we do. And we can just kind of go on from there. I'm going to continue to kind of throw things out there and see what sticks, what you guys like. If you have any other suggestions of ways that you would like to dig in, please let me know. We are playing with the idea of having some deep dive sessions where it would be like coffee if we could get together for coffee. So maybe everybody brings their own, mug, and we maybe have like a once a month, 30-minute meeting about, hey, let's really dig into like youth work experience for a second. Speaking of which, that's one of the items that I wanted to highlight in my board report today, that we are really working on refreshing a couple of the programs that we already have ongoing. I think Ellen will probably talk about it, but youth work experience is one of those. If your company or organization is one that would like to hire a youth intern, please let Ellen and her team know. Also, with our National Dislocated Worker Grant, we did receive some additional funding as a result of that. And so we are looking for new partners. That particular grant, the employer has to be a nonprofit or a governmental entity that would need additional help really due to COVID. So a health, safety, or humanitarian need. We have a few on the call today that are already participating employers. I think we are open to having additional positions for our existing employers, but we're hoping to really expand into the more southern counties in our region with this one. So we're going to do first priority for new partners, but certainly if there's space in the budget, we're willing to talk with our existing partners as well. But we're today we have that all ready to send out a call for partners, and the deadline will be the 29th of January. We also gave it a new name, so thanks to Ellen Bates and Tony on our team and Katie Jo, who all helped with the naming. So it's now going to be called Northern Kentucky Career Link, and we're describing it as a rapid reemployment program, which we think is really fitting for those individuals. It's specifically for people who have been laid off in the last year or so. So we want to get them back into the labor force. Also in your packet, you will see the KPI, the financial KPI. We have Liberty on the call today. If anyone has any questions on page 52 of your 56-page packet, I still can't believe it's that long, but you will see we have actual numbers. We have the carryover listed and our actual allocations. For those that maybe didn't know, we received our October allocation is what we call it. I don't know why, because it's called that. It came in December. So we have real numbers to share with you in terms of what we have in terms of a budget. You'll see that, let's see, Liberty, do you want to weigh in? But basically, you'll see the percent expended. It's a little low looking because we are in sort of like a 6-month to 6-month budget with our subcontractor. So we still have some invoices outstanding on that. But we are definitely trying to move forward with some of our, especially our youth program, and have worked very hard to increase that spending. Did anybody have any questions about the financial report? Okay. And then you will see our performance programming KPI. I just wanted to point out, I know there's a lot of numbers on this, but if you look at the bottom of the sheet where it says outcomes of WIOA participants, and there's a 3 sets of yellow and green vertical bars, those are the measurements that we are judged by the state. So I know there's a lot of things to look at on that page, and it can be visually a little bit confusing. That's been developed over time to try to show so many of the different things that we do. But those bar charts, those are our measurements that we will be evaluated on in terms of performance, that we actually have an agreement with the state that will be our performance. So if you're ever wanting to know where do I start looking, how we're doing in green versus what our goal is in yellow is a very good place to begin. And again, does anybody have any questions about any of that? We're going a little fast today, so we have time to talk about our mission, vision, and values. Okay, and then we also have an update about funds received. We have applied for a grant from Citi and hope to find out about that soon. And we plan to apply for a grant from Horizon. Both of those we intend to use in our work to leverage a grant we are participating in with St. Elizabeth, connecting people in substance abuse recovery to the workforce and jobs. So that is my report, and takes us up to Ellen and Corey's report.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tara. Yeah, Tara, mentioned a lot of things that I'm, we're excited about and ramping up in this coming 6 months. David, do you mind bringing up the sheet? There is a handout where there's a handout in the packet that has kind of mine and Corey's updates on it. And we'll kind of go through that. I do want to talk a little bit.
Is it this one? This page, Ellen?
I'm not. Yes, that one. That's perfect. Yes. Thank you so much. As Tara mentioned, you know, the youth experience, we are really trying to, you know, dig in on that a little bit and make sure that that is, you know, really providing the best possible experience for our youth. And so the, you know, measure that we talked about earlier this morning that you all approved to increase some potential wages for the youth and increase the hours that they're able to get that work experience is directly that, you know, that's what, that's, you know, the program that Tara was just mentioning. And so that really gives an opportunity for our opportunity youth to, you know, gain some experience. It's that old adage, you can't get a job without experience. You can't get experience without a job. And this program is really designed to be able to help those individuals in ages 16 to 24 really be able to identify, you know, kind of what they want to be when they grow up and learn, you know, get some experience and explore new avenues within the workforce. Those of us who are in the workforce world know that there are a million different ways that people can go down in terms of our in-demand industries and a lot of different skills and credentials that people can you know, pursue. And so that 16 to 24-year-old age range is the perfect time to be exploring those. And so our youth work experience is the program that really helps those individuals do that. I'll steal Eric Owsley's phrase. He always calls our youth diamonds, and they need to be polished a little bit, you know, so we like to, you know, work with them and help them really polish those skills, polish those talents so that they become excellent employees further on in their career. So if you are interested in hosting a youth work experience person, please let me know. I'd be happy to talk with you more about that. We are really looking forward to you know, connecting those individuals. So I'll kind of dive into the handout here on the direct workforce side. We have enrolled 30 customers into WIOA registered services within the last quarter. So we've definitely seen an uptick in those registrations and referrals, especially since we resumed some limited in-person services. And just to kind of connect some dots, those green and yellow bars that Tara mentioned at the bottom of the KPI, when we talk about enrolling customers into registered services, those are the customers that are playing into these outcomes here. Those outcomes that we are, you know, these are the goals that we are meeting with, you know, via this, our working with the state. And so, you know, as you can see within the first quarter of the year, we are meeting or exceeding all of our outcomes. So we're really excited about that. And we have enrolled, as I mentioned, 30 new customers. And those registered services are those services that have some eligibility requirements to them. So, you know, for our youth and adult customers, there's typically an income limit, which for a single individual is less than $12,000 a year. And then, of course, our dislocated worker customers that they are receiving unemployment or have exhausted unemployment. You know, and our National Dislocated Worker Grant that Tara mentioned is a great example of that, you know, really designed to get with those customers whose employment has been impacted due to COVID and help them get, you know, rapidly back into the workforce and connected with some jobs that are really, you know, benefiting those companies and organizations that are seeing an uptick right now as in this economy. As we know, many companies are soaring and other companies are struggling a little bit. And so we're really trying to support on both ends of that economy. So we're excited to get those customers enrolled. Also want to, you know, we've talked a lot about the Strategic Workforce Action Team here, which is that collaboration of workforce partners that really, you know, wraps around kind of bundled services around our employers. And so wanted to let everyone know that model has actually been lifted up to DOL as a best practice for layoff aversion at the state level. Our state partners with the Office of Employer and Apprenticeship Services have really, you know, and kind of lifted that up to DOL. And actually, we've also had meetings with other areas of the state to kind of talk a little bit about that model and how that's helped support employers in our area. And of course, we're continuing to do some CQI with that model as well. And then wanted to draw everyone's attention to, again, some employer successes. In the KPIs, we often talk about our hiring events and job placements via those hiring events. And so FedEx has recently had some success in working with the Career Center. We've held 4 drive-through hiring events, and actually that's 5. We had one just last week now that wasn't included when I sent this report in. So, we've held several drive-through hiring events. We've had 98 people attend those hiring events and 49 job placements specifically with FedEx as a result of those. And many of these positions have wages up to $21 an hour for entry-level positions. And so really excited to see the impact of those hiring events and, how we can connect to those core customers or those basic career services customers to jobs as well as our registered customers. And then wanted to recap a little bit of the City Futures work. City Futures are also our Job Plus program within the City Heights community in Covington. They held a year-end celebration via Facebook Live, really celebrating some of the customers' accomplishments over this past year. And as we know, 2020 was quite a doozy. And so really wanted to highlight a lot of the hard work of some of these customers. They celebrated 11 customers who really made really significant progress towards their goals, either career or educational goals. A few of those include 2 customers that are being hired on full-time by their externship sites. So they were enrolled at Center for Employment Training in medical assisting and did their externship and have been hired on full-time by those companies. And then also an additional customer that is was accepted to the fellowship with St. Elizabeth for medical assisting. And she was just one of 16 individuals who was accepted into that fellowship. And so we're really proud of those customers. And then lastly, Tara had mentioned the SAMHSA Lift Up grant via St. Elizabeth. And so the Career Center and Brighton Center staff are also participating in that. We will really be focusing on increasing employment services for customers with substance use disorder, and excited to jump into that program. St. Elizabeth, as Tara mentioned, is the recipient of this grant. And, we're working with several other partners on that. So we're really excited. I have posted for a position that will be working specifically with those customers as part of this grant. And so we're excited to be able to increase the employment outcomes for those individuals. And that's all.
Thanks, Ellen. Good morning, everyone. Just wanted to highlight just a few things really quickly. As you all know, we've been open to limited in-person services since November 2nd. Since that time, we've served over 3,500 individuals, which we're very pleased with. 85% of those services had to do with unemployment. And so we're continuing to kind of craft our messaging around that. But our goal is to really engage more job seekers and get them connected to work. Also, since the beginning of the year, the calendar year, we've introduced a couple of new services. We're now reserving our computers in our resource rooms in Covington and Florence for those who do not have access to technology. And we're hosting in-person applicant interviews where employers come to our career centers and interview job candidates by appointment, and that's going very well. Normally, that's an open interview setting. Due to space limitations and trying to manage numbers, it's by appointment only at this point. And the only other thing I wanted to mention is, as Dave Fleischer said earlier in his report, we were very happy to certify some additional access points in our public library partners. Our goal was to also certify our Williamstown location at the end of 2020. We hit a little snag on that due to some ADA assessment obstacles. Those are being addressed, and we hope to have that certification site visit take place in the first part of February. And my goal, if there's room on the agenda, is to bring it back in front of the full WIB for your consideration for approval during the March 9th meeting. And that's all I had. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Corey and Ellen. Appreciate that. So I think now Tara will begin the discussion about the strategic plan, the mission, the vision, and the values.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So we have just a couple of slides. So David, if you want to bring up the chapter 2 slide deck. And I'll walk you all what you're about to talk about, and then we can have a conversation. So to begin with, I just wanted to go through, Dana talked about this a little bit, but as a reminder, we are required by WIOA to have a local plan. And the local plan, if you look on the website, it's out there. We're actually working on getting a portal created for you as board members. And if you took the survey, it took you to that portal. I don't have the link right here, but maybe somebody could post it in the chat when you get a second. But anyway, you can see our state, our local and regional plans. And the local plan is very long. I can't remember exactly, but it's over 100 pages, I believe, in 5 chapters. But we went ahead and really dove into the guide, and there's actually only 30 questions, which 30 is not too bad, that are actually need to be answered as a component of this plan, by the board. And the 5 chapters are economic and workforce analysis. Actually, everything that Dave Fleischer mentioned in the industry certification effort that the Business Services Committee is undertaking, that is pretty much going to completely handle our needs in terms of chapter 1. So we say thank you to the Business Services Committee because they will be actually handling 2 things that we need to do at once. So we like that. The second chapter is all about strategic vision and goals. And the 3 questions that need to be answered by the board are our mission statement, your vision statement, and and we have values listed. And so that is what we are going to work on today. The 3rd and 4th chapters kind of go together, all about really the program, how we coordinate and collaborate with others, and then the design and evaluation. So chapters 3 and 4 are really kind of go hand in hand. And then chapter 5 is all about compliance, performance, and administration. So David, if you want to go to the next slide. So today, again, we are going to focus on chapter 2. As has been mentioned, a survey was sent out. I know not everyone had a chance to complete that. I got a couple questions in the chat. We will send your link back out if you ask for that. There's certainly still time to respond, and we appreciate those that reached out to ask about that. So, but we did get over 50% response rate. And so what we did today is we have divided out the 3 topics and then added in what we already received as feedback. And so we'll be able to talk through that. So we see this really being something that the full board, definitely we need everyone to weigh in. And then the executive committee, the MBO, and the new strategic planning ad hoc committee will really be able to wordsmith these things. So today we're really looking for like high level themes, less so than like this word versus this word. But if you have those kinds of comments, put those in the chat as well. David, next. So this I know there's a lot of words here, but it really just dives into the specific questions. And again, they're all about our vision, mission, and values. So David, if you want to go to the next one. Okay, so our vision statement. The Northern Kentucky Workforce Investment Board will drive innovative workforce development that meets the changing needs of employers and our labor force, resulting in the enhancement of economic development for our region. So the feedback that we received from the survey was that perhaps the statement could be bolder. that we need to add some element about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Something about long-term stability was mentioned, collaboration was mentioned, and what exactly do we mean about economic development was mentioned. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through all three of these because they obviously align so well to each other, and then we'll ask for feedback about each one individually. So David, if you go to the next one, this is the mission statement. So the mission statement is the high impact Northern Kentucky Workforce Investment Board drives policy, direction, and funding oversight for the local workforce investment system. The local workforce investment system promotes supporting economic development, connecting education and training to employment, meeting current and future employment needs. Again, you're going to see common themes were addressed and brought up: diversity, equity, inclusion needing to be included, collaboration mentioned, regional metrics, and you're going to see this in our value statements as well. Some comments about how do we tie, how do we show that we're tying metrics to the work. And then there was a mention of adding in living wages, which I think is kind of similar to the comment in the vision statement about, what exactly do we mean by economic development? Okay, then the third element that we'll all be discussing today is the value statement. There's actually 2 slides for this because it's a little bit long, but the first one is, these are our values. And I'm not going to read all of these, but we currently have customer focus, self-sufficiency, innovation, continuous improvement, integrity, and then here we have collaboration in our values. So David, if you go to the next slide, I just summarized the high level and then the themes that were recommended so far in the feedback from the survey were connecting our values to the work. DEI, I apologize, stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Mentioned was better connecting diversity goals to collaboration, being more proactive, and emphasizing timely decision making. So if we can come off of slide sharing for a second, I'm hoping, I know it's going to be a little tricky because you're not going to be able to look at the mission, and I'm going to try really hard to bring up into the chat these documents so that you can still see them. But I think sometimes when we're talking, it's just so much easier when we can look at each other. So I want to go first to the missions, or to the vision statement rather. So right now, we've already heard some themes, and maybe we don't even have to tie it to one individual one right now. But one of the things I'd like to ask is, if you have something, maybe it's a word use, please add it to the chat. But I'm curious if anyone, maybe we could even start with someone who did fill out the survey. Does anyone want to comment on why you made the comments that you did? Oh yeah, and David Kloppner has posted the page, the resource page about this plan process in the chat. And I should have said, Dana and I, we intend to use this required, very lengthy local plan process to then be able to simultaneously lift up a strategic plan priority list for the board that is a much more manageable size than 165 pages, something that's a much more manageable, something that you will be able to work on and follow for the next couple of years. So, but did anybody want to comment on maybe why they added the comments that they had?
Here I can.
Yes, thank you.
So mine were surrounded by, I thought the vision statement was great, but what I've been impressed with is that we're often the first to either go back live with services or so something about being a benchmark. I know some people steer away from Premier. It might be too egotistical, but I really think our local WIB is a benchmark or a gold standard. And so I wanted to infuse a little bit more boldness and aspirational aspects to it. I think when I read it, it was similar to just cliche, like good to great. I think we're much greater and we're much more of an industry leader than the vision sets out, and we want to even be better. So I think a little bit more boldness to, we do all this because we want to change the industry. People point to us, and it's not about the recognition we get. It's if you're at such a high standard that people are using you as a benchmark, then your quality of services are top notch. So that's, the recognition comes because you're just so stellar. So I think we're more leaders and more motivational to others than I think what it states.
Thank you, Shannon, very much for that. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and Shannon, I think that's a
not
great, sorry, Shannon, I think that's a great comment. So thank you for that. And I think kind of the high impact alludes to that, but I agree, Shannon, it's not, the language is not strong. I think it doesn't exactly scream what you're saying. So I definitely think there's some wordsmithing we can do there. It's kind of implied through high impact, but I mean, you're exactly right. We're a lot of the gold standard. I think that's a good phrase. And a lot of times that's us, because we tend to do things first among our peer boards across the state, and are often used as an example of good stuff being done that a lot of the boards model. So I definitely agree that we could make that language stronger. So Shannon, thank you for that.
Dana, is high impact in the vision or the mission?
Good question. I think it was in the mission, actually.
David, do you want to bring the vision?
Yeah, so I think I think for a mission that might be appropriate, and then for the vision, and we all do these things differently, right, and have our own interpretation, but particularly the vision coming out of it, really aspirational, inspirational, cutting edge benchmark language would be great.
Yeah.
But I think for the mission, I had less suggestions.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. That's great.
Thanks, Dana.
Yep. Thank you.
One of the other themes that we noted, and again, anyone who wants to add thoughts into the chat, please do. We'll share this for a second, but both the vision and the mission statement, we had several individuals that mentioned that they would like to see more around diversity, equity, and inclusion here. And I would love to hear some comments from someone that added that, or that has, I know several of you have brought forward this issue as something that needs to be added, which I agree. And this is something I worked on actually quite a bit when I was with United Way of Greater Cincinnati. So totally agree that this is something that could be added, but I was just curious if anybody wanted to add their thoughts there. John, maybe?
Sure. These proposed themes I actually thought a lot about when I was responding to the survey, and I chose not to include them actually, simply because I was afraid that the vision statement could get overly wordy and therefore not sticky. And I find that vision statements and mission statements, when trying to be all encompassing and check every box, it becomes something easily forgettable that you have to then look up every time. So I just want to share my mindset that when I read the changing needs of our employers and our labor force, if we are conscious about how we communicate what that term means, and we lead with diversity, equity, and inclusion in that conversation, I think we can connect those two together, because our labor force is dramatically different than it was. I don't want to pick a time period, but it is evolving and it continues to evolve, and therefore we must be very conscious of what that means. So my vote of yes, no changes was not a no change in the way we think about this. So I would love if we can find a way to bring these themes in without making this even harder to understand or harder to remember.
Can I add to John's comments, Tara?
Absolutely.
I like what John is saying there regarding being careful not to make the vision statement too wordy. But what we could do as a as a group is, as an organization, is come up with a whole separate diversity, equity, and inclusion statement. I've seen this done recently with ArtsWave in a very powerful way. And it's something that not just the statements that have been developed, but what we are doing with board makeup, what we're doing on committee makeup, to John's point around, employees and employers. But it's a way to take what we want to do around diversity, equity, inclusion, and ensure that it's encompassed in all parts of the organization, committee, board, you name it. And so I think we would be okay sharing from ArtsWave. I'm the secretary of the board there this year. I think it would be okay sharing an example of what that looks like for consideration by this organization. I just want to run that by Alicia Kentner and our board chair, and ensure they would not have a problem with us sharing that. But I can tell you that it's made a big difference already. We have intentionally been very strategic in adding new board members. We've been intentional in our makeup. And there's some really great things happening, even with respect to our programming, which our programming looks a little different than this organization, but just to say that the work is not words, it's action. And I'd be happy to share that back at some point.
That would be great. I think that would be great. And that's a very, I think that could be an extremely good solution here as well.
Thank you for that, Rhonda. That's great. I love the thought of that. So, and if you're able to share an example, that would be great. And we can take a look at that. Another thing that we could look at too is we haven't really talked much about the values statement. I mean, Tara showed them, but to me, that's an opportunity to actually just add a diversity and inclusion item under our value statements, or the two aren't necessarily mutually exclusive. So, maybe we have a separate diversity and inclusion statement, but then we also add it to our values. So I think because there's like categories, if you will, in our value statements or themes, I think that could be a good opportunity or a good place for us to add, diversity and inclusion component as well. Just another approach.
We could have it listed in the values and then
have a separate statement. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we're running a little low on time. If there's any other comments about the mission or vision statement, please add them to the chat, or you can email me directly. Let's bring up the values again one more time and dig into those just a little bit more, David, if you don't mind. And Shannon says several nonprofits are considering posting their diversity, equity, inclusion statement in the centers where their clients attend, which I love that idea as well. So here are the values that we currently have listed. I know there were several comments about collaboration in the mission and vision statement areas. So we do have that called out. So if somebody has, thoughts about if you'd like to see that enhanced or changed in some way, consider maybe looking here for that as well. And anyway, so here's the language. And again, it is on our website as well, if you need to take more time. But if you can flip over, David, to the next page, I was curious did anyone have any thoughts about any of this feedback that we received, connecting values to our work? And I think it was, my understanding of that comment was, being that action oriented, like Rhonda said, right? Like we have these words, but how are we showing that we are action oriented? I think that was a little bit of the spirit of the comment about timely decision making or being proactive, as well as just that action oriented focus. I don't know that we have to add a value around that, but that was just some of the feedback that was received. And so I was curious if anyone else had any thoughts about this value statement or any other issue. I see Dr. Figueroa has come off mute.
Yeah, thanks, Dara. I mean, I think it's probably worth some time to think about, how does the WIB see its role in the ecosystem? Where does it see itself as the leader of certain achievements and initiatives? Does it see itself as the primary convener of Northern Kentucky around education and training assets? Does it see itself as a player, an ally? I think those are the things that kind of identify and will inform the vision. Is certainly is like, how do we see ourselves playing within this ecosystem? And is the WIB has, I think, traditionally been kind of a marker of collaborations or a marker of efforts in workforce investment. It has not necessarily said, we are the convener, we are the ones who are going to make sure the data is, understood and expressed widely through Northern Kentucky, and that we hold ourselves accountable for ensuring that our community becomes one that believes in justice for all and opportunity for all.
That is so helpful, I think, and it goes to that aspirational comment that Shannon said, as well as the action-oriented, like, what is the board's role really going to be? Appreciate that feedback. Likewise, Jamie Parsons commented in the chat, in case anybody missed it, that by definition, labor force just looks at those who are available for work, while the term workforce is designed as those available for work and engaged. So the idea being, if we change the wording from labor force to workforce, are we by nature expanding our look at, who we are considering engaging, which is basically everyone, right? So I know we're out of time, but I do appreciate this feedback. We will continue to both consider and also wordsmith some of these suggestions through the planning committee process. And so if you have any other comments, we definitely will still welcome those. And we look forward so much to working with all of you on both the more of the loop that is as well as our strategic plan. So Dana, back to you.
All right, thank you, Tara, and thank you, everyone. This is just the very beginning of these conversations. So look for more to come on this. And as Tara said, we will be, through the planning committee, incorporating feedback, wordsmithing things. So you may be seeing some things come through email and over the next couple of meetings about this. So just keep that in mind. And with
Dana,
that,
can I make a real quick comment?
Yep.
It kind of dovetails into what John was saying and what Rhonda was saying. I think with the core value statement or the value statement, one of the things you can do is have very simple titles that everybody remembers. And then you have a paragraph underneath that discusses those. And so that's what we've done at the library, where, for instance, our first core value is welcoming and diverse. So what we're trying to get the staff to remember is that one core value, welcoming and diverse. And then you can always refer back to a document that indicates what that means, but it's keeping it tight and it's allowing the staff to remember those 5 core values and not have to know the entire full page document. So I think there's a way of doing that. And I think John's right. We need to keep things tight so that people can identify and remember those things, but you can also expand on them in a document that's readily available.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Dave. If you would be willing to share what you guys use as an example, just send that to Tara and that would be great. We can incorporate that into our conversations. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. Thanks for the great conversation. We're a couple minutes over. I apologize for that. But thanks again. Look forward to more great conversation about this. And with that, we are officially adjourned. Everyone have a great rest of your day and great week. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.